Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is me, attorney Hadi Harp, and welcome to another edition of Estate Plan Chat. In previous videos, we've talked about what happens if you don't make a guardianship nomination for your kids. We've also talked about where you can make a guardianship nomination for your kids. Today, I want to talk about things to consider in who to choose to serve as your guardian. This is often the biggest hurdle, obstacle, decision that parents need to make in part as part of their estate planning, and that is who's going to take care of our kids. And you often get disagreements among spouses over who they should choose. But let me just give you some basic pointers on how to consider guardians for your kids. Number one, you really want to think about what you value, okay, in raising your kids. And that could mean, do you place a high emphasis on religion, on spirituality, on work ethic, on sports and athletic, on hobbies? All of these things need to be taken into account when thinking about who would be best to raise your kids. Okay. Parenting styles may be a little different between couples. I'm sure you have different relatives in your life who approach all of these things very different, all right, than each other, and maybe very different than you. So you want to sort of create some type of guide for yourself to put values on these different things and come to a conclusion about who might be best to raise your kids. Now, another thing you want to consider is what the timeline is. Look, you can't think and choose your guardians forever. I mean, you don't want to have a 10-year timeline. Okay, is this person going to be able to raise my kids in 10, 12 years, assuming they're still toddlers? You really want to put the time frame, okay, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. um, who would we want raising our children? And sort of that's the timeline that I think most parents should approach it with, because you can't plan for everything. People may pass away. If you're thinking on a 10-year horizon, a lot of people want to think about grandparents. And so often, that doesn't make for a good guardian if they're, up there in age. But if they're younger, or you're thinking about it on a 2 to 3 year timeline, then grandparents could make for good guardians, assuming they're still able to take care of themselves, let alone your children. So that's one, two, three. I don't know how many considerations we talked about, but here is a final one. If you are choosing a couple to serve as guardians for your children, okay, you have to really think through, am I really nominating the couple, or am I nominating one person in the couple? Because a situation that often arises is that couples divorce. And so, who really did you really want raising your kids in case they divorce? Would you want either of them raising your kids if they divorce? And you could replace divorce with passing away. If one of them passes away, and you nominated Michelle and John as the guardians together. If she passes away, do you want John raising your kids by himself? Those are things you got to think about, and those are things you have to incorporate inside your guardianship nomination instructions. You don't want to leave anybody guessing, and you certainly don't want somebody raising your child if you didn't want them to raise them in the first place, now that they have been divorced, or their spouse has passed away. So those are some considerations. You're not the only one struggling over this decision, and remember, you could always update them as time goes on. Maybe for the first 2, 3 years of your toddler's life, the grandparents make sense. Maybe when they get a little bit older, it makes sense to switch to different guardians. So it's an ongoing process when you talk about estate planning. And this, of course, guardianship nominations is not the exception here either. You can always keep it updated. You can always change it up as things evolve. All right, so that's today's video. Hope you learned something. As always, you can visit estateplanchat.com if you have any further questions or want to talk about your situation. Thank you. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you next time.